Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma of Gimel. We began the sugya of Eish. How do we define responsibility for fire, damage caused by one's fire? According to Rabbi Yehuda, Ishay Mishim Chitzav, it's regarded like a personal act, like shooting an arrow, where one's energy, one's power actually extends and causes damage. So the fire is like an extension of one's self and one's actions. Whereas Rish Lakish looks at it differently. Ishay Mishim Mamoinai. It's like your item, like your possession, like you created a mechanism to create harm and damage. But it isn't necessarily an extension of yourself and regarded like your personal act. Rather, you're responsible for your Eish committing harm and damage. Okay, so that's the intro to today's sugya as well. Omar Rava, so we're on the second line off the top, Omar Rava. I'll tell you, Abaye had a kash. Kash leila Abaye. Lamada Omar Isha Mishim Chitzav, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Eish is like an arrow. So then, we all know that there is an exemption called Taman. If a fire burns through an area and there are hidden items unseen to the eye, there is no responsibility for that. Taman. Now, if an Eish is regarded like one's arrow, like a personal act, how can we understand? Why would the Torah, so to speak, exempt you for that? A person's fully responsible for everything that he does. Right? Rashi brings, there's a Mishnah back in later on Chavav, that when it comes to one's personal actions, I'm not talking about your cow, your ox, there perhaps it's different, but a personal act is chayiv regardless whether it's intentional, unintentional, willing, unwilling, doesn't matter. You're fully responsible. So if Eish is a personal act, it carries full responsibility without any exemptions. Taman be'eish de pater rachmana, the fact that the Torah gave you an exemption for Taman, burned through a fire, something hidden. How do we understand that? Meaning it's unlikely that the Torah would do that if in fact an Eish would be defined like a Chetz. Now if it's, Tosfos explains, if Eish would be like your ox, it's not your personal doing, rather it's your possession, the catalyst that you created to go ahead and call. So there we understand there are many different types of guidelines when it comes to Mamain Hamazik. Shayr has one type of responsibility, Keren a different, Regel, all different types of expressions of Mamain, of your possession, that's Mazik. So that would make more sense. So then you can understand that when it comes to the Eish form of Mamain Hamazik, it has different halachas, different guidelines, but not if it's Ishay Mishim Chitzav, it's your personal doing, your personal act. But Abaye, despite having this kasha, came up with an answer. I'll give you a way to explain the p'tur of Taman Beish, a case where somehow we'll work it out that you lit a fire, which went and spread over to the the next door area, burnt down the city, but it's still not considered your direct doing, like your arrow. So the fire started burning here. Now there was a fence which would have blocked this fire as it was happening, and then the hurricane came and knocked down the fence, and that opened the door for the fire that you lit over here, which wouldn't have gone further, to now spread into next door's territory. So in that case, the hasam kolele chitzav, it's like an expression, your arrows have sort of terminated. Basically what this means is that since when you ignited the fire, that fire had no ability to spread further, you can't be personally responsible. It's not your act, it's not your shooting. And therefore we can understand that there's some exemptions. Asks the Gemara, then be pater totally. So why would this only work to exempt you for something which was taman, something which was hidden and burnt, even something which is open and revealed? You're totally you're exempt. You're not responsible for for this, how should you have known that the hurricane is going to knock down the protective wall? It's not your doing. Oh, says the Gemara, the answer is like this. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, Eish is like an arrow. He also holds of the concept that Eish can be regarded as your mammon as well. So in this situation, although it's no longer your direct doing, because when you lit that fire, the arrow, so to speak, cannot travel past the wall. But after you saw the wall falling down, you should have quickly got the wall back up to protect your next door neighbor from your fire, which you lit a half hour ago when the wall was still up. You know, it's like you have a wild animal and you fail to fence it in. You fail to close the door and block it in. So you should have done that as well. So on the one hand, the chetz factor is no longer relevant, because when you lit the fire, the chetz, so to speak, the arrow could not have traveled past the wall, which was present at that time. But then when the wall collapsed, your responsibility now shifts. It's no longer your chetz. I agree, it's not your chetz, but it's your mammon. It's your, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees to the concept of mammon. It's your doing. It's your sort of possession that you created. You created a mechanism to go and burn. So that should have been contained by quickly putting up another protective fence. So bottom line is, in this situation, chetz doesn't exist. So the question falls down. The question of how could you be potter for taman? It's chetz. It's not chetz. Why are you chayiv at all? Because it's your mammon. Asks the Gemara, so now that we come to this point that even everybody agrees, Rabbi Yehuda agrees that there is a mammon factor in fire as well. It's your thing that you have to look after. My benai, so in a case where the fire belongs to you, so everybody's agreeing pretty much that you're chayiv. So what would be the difference between Rech and Rish Lakish? The difference is like this. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you chayiv more than Rish Lakish. Above Dvarim are the four additional responsibilities, aside from just plain, responsibility. There's four things. There's nezek, tsar, ripuy, shevis. So let's say a person was harmed by a fire, so the responsible party has to pay for, his loss of value, market value, his pain, doctor bills, or loss of employment. All these are specific to when a person is mazik somebody else. So if in fact the Eish is regarded as your doing, your direct act, like a chetz, like an arrow, then you have to pay all those additional payments as well. Whereas if it's just your mammon, well, like an ox that gores does not generate all these additional responsibilities, so that would be the difference between Riach and Rish Lakish. Okay, continues the Gemara. Al charar mishalim, nezek shalim. So the Mishnah describes a dog grabbed a pizza pie which was still had some coal stuck to it, and he ate the pie and he burnt down the grain area. So Mishnah says, you pay for the actual food 100%, full payment, but for everything else only 50%. Now the question is like this: Man chayiv, who's paying for the extra stuff? Baal Kelev, right? The dog owner, because it's his doing. Question is, but the Baal HaGodesh, the farmer, is now going to lose out because the dog owner only pays, a certain percentage, as we learned in the Mishnah. Let the fellow who owns the coal, he left his coal out there, right? Potential hazard. He should share responsibility and pay the rest. We're speaking that he looked after the gachelas. He guarded it. It was not exposed, so he's not responsible. Well, if it was concealed and contained, my boy Kelef Hassan, what's the dog doing and grabbing his gachelas? He dug under he tunneled into the area. So bottom line is the Baal Gachelas is totally potter, but the Baal Kelev is chayiv. Now why is the Baal Kelev chayiv? He should have expected his dog to tunnel in. Yeah. Omar of Mori, Breda of Kano, Yusameris, we learn from here. Stam Dalsis, even a locked door is chasurois henetzel Kelev. You don't put up against. You're not protected from a dog tunneling under a doorway, in which case the owner should have anticipated that. Now the question is, where did the dog have the charora as a meal? Where? In which territory? The achla heicha. Ilaim the achla begadish. The alma, did he take him to a different area? So basically he grabbed the charora from Ruvain, and ate it in Shimon's farm, and that's where he lit the fire, why is he chayiv to pay for eating the charara, which belonged to Reuven, if it was eaten in Shimon's farm? We all know that Shein is only chayiv b'chatzar hanizik. Habe'inan ubir b'stei acher v'leken. Right? The halacha is that you have to be in the area of the victim. V'leken, you don't have it in this case. Says in Tzricha, so it must be the achla begadish de bal charara. So the dog owner's dog broke into the Shimon Reuven's farm, and he grabbed the charara, and as he did so, he actually he burnt down the charara, burnt down the gadish. Sorry. So that's what happened. He grabbed the food and he ate it right there in Reuven's territory, and that's where it caused the other damage as well. So yeah, so it's very good. It's chatzar nizak. So we went through some steps here, right? First, we thought that we're speaking that the charara belongs to Reuven and the gadish belongs to Shimon. That was a problem, right? We thought that he dug into Reuven's territory. Otherwise, the dog owner would have to pay 100% for the charara. Only have to pay partially if it's like something unusual. It would be keren. So bottom line is that's what we thought. Two separate owners, and he ate the charara in Shimon's place. The question is, that's not called chatzar nizik of Reuven? The answer is no. The charara and the gadish both belong to Reuven, and the dog went in there, had the charara, and burnt out his gadish. Now the question is, again, why is he chayiv 100% for the charara? Tifshet l'chayra, it would appear that you can gain clarity, some clarity from this halacha. That what? The pi fara k'chatzar nizik dami. Interesting question. So the animal, the cow, chewed up, this fellow's food. Now, what did the food get consumed in the cow's mouth? Is that called the victim's territory, or is it within the animal? So it's no longer considered chatzar nizik. So it would appear from this halacha that it's called chatzar nizik. Otherwise, the dog owner wouldn't have to pay because the charara was consumed in the dog's mouth. Because it's considered like the mazik's place, then he wouldn't have to pay lema lay, so that then the mazik can tell the victim, my boy, what's your bread doing in the mouth of my dog? Right? So clearly, we learn from here that no, the fact is the dog is standing in his place. So even though technically the food went into the dog's mouth, it's still considered chatzar nizik. Because really, this was an old shaila, and we had many attempts at clarifying it, but this seems to be proper clarity. The boilu, because we had this old shaila, pi fara k'chatzar nizik dami or k'chatzar mazik dami. The food found in the para's mouth, which he's consuming, right? So he's consuming the other fellow's food, but it's in his mouth. Is that called chatzar nizik or chatzar mazik? In which case, he's not responsible for shein. The question is like this: how could you even entertain this notion that the mouth of the animal is called chatzar mazik? How could you ever be chayiv for eating in the other person's food? Shein the chiv rachman eichem shkachas. The whole concept of shein is not feasible because the dog is inevitably putting it into his mouth, which is no longer the chatzar nizik. Amar of Mari, Breder of Kahan. I'll give you some examples where there can be an expression of shein which is still called chatzar nizik. You don't run into this issue of mouths. Shein is more than just eating. Any sort of damage caused by the animal enjoying himself, so to speak. So the animal sort of scraping himself, rubbing himself pleasurably against a wall, and by doing so, destroys the wall. Okay, so here you have an expression of shein, which does not constitute, inserting the food or the item into the actual animal's body. So that's certainly chatzar nizik. Or another example of a tinfa peres lan asa. It just playfully rolled on some peros and destroyed them. So again, it never was inserted into the animal's mouth. How can you say this is the example of shein of the pasuk v'beina kashi yevayra galal atumay? The pasuk says there that when the animal eats, he totally destroyed. Veleka, here you don't have it. He just rubbed himself. He damaged it. There was no total destruction. Ravina Amar the shaft salmi. So Ravina says, in the case of the scraping on the wall, he did. What he did was he obliterated some sort of mural that was pictured on the wall. So he just totally destroyed it. But again, he didn't insert it into his body, so you have no issue of chatzar hanizik. Rav Ashi Omar the Pasei Pesui, in the case of the rolling on the peiros, again, he totally destroyed it, he crushed it, pureed it, and muddied it, in which case it's totally useless. So you have total destruction, but still it's outside the animal. Toshma, here comes another right to this question. The inside of the animal's mouth, what is that regarded as? Shisa b'is hakelev, shisa b'is hanachash, a person instigated a dog or a snake against somebody else, and it caused damage. Potter, he's potter, Rashi says, because after all, he's just, it's not a direct mazik, it's a grama, so he's potter. At least in this world, they're not, they reckon with grama as well, but with the other is potter. Now, man potter, who's potter here? Mishasa potter, v'chay ba'al kelev. So the one who instigated the animal, right? He's potter, but the ba'al kelev is chay, because after all, his animal damaged and injured. Now, the question is, where did the injury actually take place? Inside the mouth of the dog and the snake, right? If inside the mazik's mouth is considered like the chatzar mazik, so then lay malay, the owner of the animal can tell the victim, "My boy, what's your hand doing in the mouth of my dog?" So if that's a valid argument, why is he chayiv? Ema says, well, you're right, patur af mishas. Not only is the animal owner chayiv, even the instigator who caused this whole issue is also patur. So everybody's patur. Not only the animal owner patur, but everybody's patur. What you say in other terms can be that there's no issue of inserting into the animal because the afke lenivi v'sarte. What happened was the dog stuck his teeth out of his mouth, or the snake as well, and that's how he injured. So it wasn't inside the animal's mouth. So that's how we get around that question. Toshma, here comes another right. What happened in this case was that a fellow actually grabbed the snake and he sort of applied it to the other person's hand and caused a bite. So what happens in this case? Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev v'chacham poitim. In this case we have a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says you chayev misa for bringing about that person's death, and chacham say you potter. If you further analyze and try to explain this machlokes, why you come to Rabbi Yehuda Chayev, come to Rabbanan Potter, it's like this. How is this consistent with the idea of grama ben azak in this potter? Like this. Rabbi Yehuda holds eres nochash ben shinav hu'oimed. The snake's venom is sort of positioned right between his teeth. There's sort of a cavity where the snake is there, and the nachash sort of didn't really take part in this transfer of venom. The person who held the nachash onto that person's hand actually sort of got the venom to shoot out. It's the person's doing, not the animal. Poor animal. It's not right. It's the person who using the animal as a tool to strike the other person. So the one who did that, the person is totally responsible for the other person's death, and he gets killed by a sword. He's chayiv misa. But nachash potter, the nachash is exempt because he's just being used as a vehicle. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The eres is right here, ready to go. They look at it differently. Eres nachash me'atzma meiki. It's the sort of the snake that has an automatic mechanism that when the person applied the snake to the person's hand, the snake sort of shut out the venom. So that was the other way. Who's responsible? Nachash is responsible for actually bringing it about. He gets skila for killing a person. Makish potter, but the person doing it is potter. Okay, that's the end of the story. Now let's go back to our question. The interior of the animal's mouth. What is that regarded as? If you tell me that the interior of the animal's mouth is like the animal owner's territory, it's not your place to be. So then here as well, my boy, so in the case where the animal is being put to death, the snake in this case, why is the snake responsible? What's your hand doing in the mouth of my snake? Right? It says the Gemara, You're right. But the truth is that this whole discussion of how to, classify the inside of the animal's mouth is only relating to damages, to nizak, to mazikin. Because we have a pasuk that has to be in the chatzar nizak, and there's always that that argument, what are you doing in my place? I'm not responsible. But when it comes to actually killing, so an animal killed a person, that's a totally different track. The fact is, if an animal brings about the person's death, the animal is liable to death as well, irrespective of where it took place. Right? So So with respect to killing the perpetrating animal, there's no difference of where it took place. Menot Temra. How do we know that's true? The Sanya, we have a brayse. Hanichnas l'chotzer balabayi is shaloi b'rshus. So the animal walks into Reuven's territory, without permission, and Reuven's ox kills Shimon's ox, Umays. Sorry, we're talking about a person. A person walks into Reuven's backyard, and Reuven's animal strikes this person. Umays, and the person dies. So the owner doesn't have to pay compensation, which is typically what you do when your animal kills a person. But the animal is put to death. Why? The person is exempt from payment. My time why? Because he can argue. He can say, my boys, what are you doing in my backyard? I'm not responsible. But so the question, if that's true, my time, right? It reads like that. My time, why? The owner put to because they can argue and say, my boy, what's he doing in my backyard? My boys, regarding the animal as well. You have the same argument. What are you doing here? So clearly there's a difference between the two things. Apparently when it comes to putting the animal to death, the perpetrator, the attacker to death, doesn't matter where it took place. Okay, so basically we're not clear about this whole shaila. How do we treat the mouth of a mazik? Regarding katala, certainly it doesn't matter. Regarding mazikim, we had a shaila. We tried many attempts at resolving that question, but ultimately Rashi says we already have resolution because we had the story with the kelev eating the charora inside that fellow's backyard. Why is he chayiv? Because it's called chatzar nizik, despite the fact that the actual thing was consumed in the animal's mouth. Look at where he's standing, where he took it. Says Hanu Izi, there were these goats, the Beitarbu belonging to this family Beitarbu. So they were causing Rav Yosef damage. Rav Yosef turns to Abaye. Go tell the owners to contain their animals. So apparently Abaye was not comfortable going to them, as Tosis explains, so he's sort of trying to get out of it. He says, why should I go there? Because what happens if I'm going to go? These are difficult people. They'll start giving me an argument. They'll tell you, they'll tell me to go put up a fence around my, my property and protect myself. So why have an argument with them? They're just going to give me a hard time. Instead of putting their animals at bay, they're going to tell me to protect myself, which is clearly not a valid argument. But practically speaking, this is what they're going to do to him. They weren't going to cooperate. It says more, be gather. Now, how can anybody argue that? Go protect your property. Be gather. If there's a fence around everybody's property, then shein the chiv rachman echem shkach. How do you ever have responsibility for animal eating? Everything's protected. Because the animal sort of tunneled beneath it. Inami, or in another case, the nafal gudabalelia. In the middle of the night, the fence fell down, and next morning the animal came in there. But otherwise, perhaps you have to protect yourself from the potential attackers. Machriz of Yosef, B'tema Rabba. So it was either Rav Yosef or Rabba who declared the following halacha. Everybody should know. The Salkan Leila, the people who travel up there to Israel from Bavel, or the Nachsan L'Sata, the people L'Sachta, or the people who travel down from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Everybody, hear ye. Hani easy the shuk. You should know this halacha. Very important. You have goats being brought to the market for shchita, right? And Tosis explains, typically the owner is not necessarily anymore, going to be paying so close attention to them. They're about to be shechted. So, they're sitting out there for shchita. Hanni iza the shugad mafsidi that cause damage. Masrina b'marayat lay utlos azinin. So we warn their owners once again, 3 times. Eat size if he protects the book. If he contains his animal, if he listens, fine. If he's uncooperative, Amrin we tell him tiv amas chata. Go sit down. Go get to your butcher area over there where the butchers do their their profession. The Kabul Zuzach basically shecht your animal and accept payment. Basically, the point is that even though he wasn't ready to shecht, Rashi says it's not a yom shchita, he wasn't going to do it, but since it's meant for shchita, and you're not really looking after your animals properly, we compel him to go ahead and shecht his animals. And Tosis says even though a person could say, look, I'm going to pay any damages, but the fact is nobody wants to get entangled and legal proceedings, and if you're anyways gonna shecht it soon anyway, so unless you care for it properly, go ahead, fine. Otherwise, we compel you to do the shechit. Continues the Mishnah. So we learn so much about tam and muad. The question is, how does that happen? So we know that a shoyer who acted aggressively, gored, he shoved once and again, he's relatively innocent, relatively tame. Tam, interesting, is lashon of tame. Interesting. So you only pay 50%. But if it becomes a regular thing, it becomes habitualized, the owners put on notice, it goes up to 100%. So when does that shift take place? We have machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Ezeu tam, vezeu muad. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's about days. Muad means kol she'idu boi shloisha yamim. The owner has been warned Sunday, look what he did today. Monday again, Tuesday again, it becomes a muad. It's about days. And the tam, how do you become a tam? You can actually revert to a tam. Even once you became a muad, you can go back to become a tam. It's all about days. So he's been goring Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and the owner has been put on notice once and again. He's a muad. But if he's behaved for 3 days in a row, he turns back into a tam. For it's not about days; it's about frequency. Muad means the owner has been warned 3 times. The tam means it's all about being child friendly. If the kid play with the animal and he's playful, then we know he's no longer a muad. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's about days. According to Rabbi Meir, it's about occurrences. My time with Rabbi Yehuda that it's about days. Amar Abaye, because the pasuk says, look, he's been doing this over and over again. Tomorrow, it means yesterday, and then it says mitmoil. It says tomorrow mitmoil shilshem. Mitmoil shilshem, right? So I could have just said tmoil, right? Tmoil would mean yesterday. Chad, that's 1 day. Mitmoil adds the extra mem. Mitmoil trey means 2 days ago as well, and then we have shilshem 3 days ago. So basically, it's been 3 days in a row. The owner is totally not paying attention. Then he becomes ason l'negicha revi'ah. So now, once we get to the 4th negicha, the 4th time, he's paying nezek shalom. So according to Abaye, it takes 3 times to become a muad, and starting from the 4th time, he's fully responsible. Rav Amar, he has a little bit of a different understanding of Rabbi Yehuda. It's about days, of course, but the trigger point is the 2nd time becomes a muad, in which case the 3rd time he pays fully. Tmoil mitmoil chad, because he doesn't, split the word into 2. Tmoil mitmoil is 1 day. 1 day of goring, and shilsha means the next day trey, 2 days. So once you have 2 days in a row, v'lo yishmerenu, ha'idna v'lo yishmerenu, ha'idna. So now the 3rd time, the owner fails to look after him. Chayiv, he pays nezek shalom. So bottom line is that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's about days. Now it doesn't have to be consecutive days. It just means that he was noted to have been goring 1 day, and the owner was warned, and a different day, and a different day. So if it's about 3 days of goring, he becomes a muad. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is Abaye's understanding of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabba's understanding of Rabbi Yehuda is that it's about days, but it doesn't have to be 3 days. Once you have 2 days of goring, that's enough to trigger the muad label. Going forward, he's totally a muad. But that's all according to Rabbi Yehuda, that it's about days. For Rabbi Meir looks at happenances, occurrences, not about days. It can happen 3 times in 1 day. My time and why? The Sani or Rabbi Meir. Look, the pasuk does indicate that it happened, spread out throughout the days, right? Yesterday, day before, right? But look, if you're chayiv, when you are merachik nichaysav, when you place some space between the occurrences, certainly if they happen all on the same day, of course, that's really an act of aggression. That's a sign this animal is really wild. Of course. So, according to Meir, whether it happened, in 3 separate days or it happened all on the same day, you're for sure chayiv. So that's Meir's svar. So they responded to Meir. It isn't always so that closeness of proximity makes it more potent. Look, take a look at a zava, an isha who experienced the mission of dam, right? Zava teichiach. Shericha kan ri'isea tmeya. See, the Torah says that if an isha has a dam experience 1 day and then another day, and then another day, she becomes a Zava. It's about days. So even if it happened so much on the same day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you need separate days. You need to register on Sunday, on Monday, on Tuesday. Shirichaka Riyeseh Thu May. If the Riyah, the Dam experiences happened in separate days, with spaced apart, she's Thu May. But Kirba Riyeseh Tahira. But at the same time, if they happen concentrated together on the same day, she's not Thu May. Because ultimately she only had one experience, one day of Dam. So there you go. So bundling together isn't necessarily an advantage. So why would you say the same? Why would you say that by the shar? Amar lehen. Thu May responds. There it's different. It's a xeris hakasab. It's a pasuk that by the isha it's about days and separate days. Amar lehen harei oimer. The pasuk says, when it comes to a man experiencing ziva, and a mission that makes him Thu May, it's about experience. It's about happenances, occurrences, unrelated to days. Right? Over there it can happen all in the same day and be chayiv, but by the isha it's specific to days. Harei oimer, the pasuk says, by a man it's about seeing how many times he saw the ziva. Tala kosav hazav b'riyos, ve'es hazava b'yamim. When it comes to the zav, it's about how many times he saw, not about days. But the Torah specifies v'zoy, but only by the man do we say it's about riyos. But by the zava, by the woman, v'es hazava b'yamim, it's about during how many days she had this experience. So that's a special pasuk, and you can't connect it to our sugi. Right? Says the min mai. Okay, on that topic, let's have a shayla. Min mai dehai v'zois lamuti zava v'riyos. How do we know that the word v'zois that we just mentioned, which is an exclusive, it's coming to rule something out, is coming to block out the isha, the zava, from the concept of riyos? By her, it's about days, not about how many sightings she had. Ema, perhaps we'll go the other way. L'mu'utei zav miyamim. Maybe by the isha, she can have tumah by way of separate days, or even by way of having them all on the same day. The Torah's miyut is perhaps for the man, that if he saw them, if he had the ziva in separate days, then he's not Thu May. Right? So how do we know which one to block out? Maybe by the isha she can have both systems. She saw them separate days, she's Thu May, or on the same day she's Thu May. By the man, it's about seeing them together, as opposed to separate days. So the Gemara Makro, the pasuk says like this: that the man has both options. V'azov ezoiva or zachar nekeva. The pasuk here is bundling together the man and the woman. Makish zachar nekeva, connect the zachar to nekeva. When we say like this, man nekeva b'yom, av zachar b'yom. Just like the nekeva has the other option, the days option. Likewise, the man has the same option. So it must be that by the man we have both options: separate days or the same day. But by the woman, there's only one track: separate days. What do you mean? The same pasuk here connects the man to the woman. Maybe we'll connect the woman to the man as well. We'll compare it the other way. Ma zacha b'riyos, avnekeva b'riyos. Just like the man does not have to have them in separate days. It's all about sightings. The woman as well. Well, you can't say that. Hamiyat rachmana v'zois. We have that miyut, right? Which exempts, which is memait. Well, who says which one to be memait, right? Who says to put the miyut on the woman and limit her options? Maybe limit the man. Umarois. Answer is like this: Mistavra. Take a look at this pasuk. V'zois tia tumasei b'zoivet. This is the pasuk that speaks about sightings, not about days. And there we have the miyut. Right? So mistavra. It's logical to say that the miyut pertains to the topic at hand. Koi b'riyos. When the pasuk discusses riyos, sightings, not days, and relates it to the man, v'zav ezoivai. Then the miyut over there is memayit. Riyos is coming to memayit that the woman cannot have this system, because we're talking about this system. So only he could have the system, but not she. But it's illogical to say that the miyut over here, in this pasuk which discusses sightings and not days, the Miyat will come and say, well, the man being discussed here cannot have the opportunity to tap into the days system. Not discussing days, but discussing riyas. So apparently the Miyat is saying, look, this thing discussed here applies only to this man here, but not to the woman mentioned elsewhere. Okay, so that's the discussion by Ziva. Bottom line is, by a man, it's about how many times he experienced the Ziva, whether it's all on the same day, whether it's separate days. He has both tracks. Whereas by the Isha, it's about separate days. That pertains to the Sugya of Ziva. And Rabbi says that unrelated to Negicha. When it comes to Negicha, turning to a Muad, it's about habitualizing, it's about aggressiveness. So certainly, if it was lumped together, bundled together, all at the same time, of course, that's a greater show of aggression and certainly becoming Muad. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, no. We have to give him the opportunity to express himself separately in separate days, and only that will really establish a true track record of Muad. Otherwise, in today's daf we discussed Isha Mishum Chitzav, Mishum Amoinoi. We discussed the advantage of Chitzav, which is the extra payments, Arba Dvarim, and we discussed the idea of the the interior mouth of the mouth of the animal. That's called Chatzar Nizak, despite the fact that it's his personal body. The fact that he's eating it in the other person's territory, it's called Chatzar Nizak, in which case Chayev for shame. All the best to you, Atzlacha Rabbah.